Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Linda and the Jackson family, I would like to thank all of you who are here today and also those who are watching online. The response and outpouring of support and concern has been truly remarkable. The impact and influence that Trevor had has been astounding. I'm honored and humbled to share a few words today about Trevor, a friend, a brother, a son, a mentor, a husband, sportscaster, uncle, umpire, fisherman, sports fan, Bronx supporter, a Christian, and so much more. I won't even be able to scratch the surface here, but I would like to share a few things that I know about Trevor and a few things that I've heard over the past few days. I talked to Linda 2 days ago and kind of told her what I was thinking. She said, "Is it clean enough?" So anyway. As I visited with a few folks and scanned the many social media tributes the past few days, the words that kept coming up about Trevor are passionate, committed, enthusiastic, humor, entertainment, emotional, competitive. But I think the person who hit it right on the head was DJ Dearcorn when he said, and I can sense Linda's eyes rolling as I say it, he was just a big kid. And as I think back, he was a 60-year-old big kid. Here's some stories about the big kid. For many years, Trevor would ride along with us on football trips. Normally, he rode in the Suburban, but on the long trips to Evanston and Rock Springs, we only took a bus, so he had to get on the bus with us. Now, if you haven't been on a yellow bus, school bus lately, they aren't exactly greyhounds when it comes to seating. In fact, they are really most suited for students junior high age and younger, it seems. Trevor would load up and kind of look at the seats, and he'd jam himself into a seat, set his radio gear next to him, and it was so tight that he could sleep sitting straight up. And he'd sit there, he looked like a Buddha, sitting there in that seat just snoozing away. Once in a while, he'd wake up to tell the kids behind him to quit farting. The other thing that would wake him up, Linda, the dreaded Uncrustables. The Uncrustable stops. We had a travel day ritual of stopping to do a team walkthrough and eat a lunch along the way. And that lunch always included Smucker's Uncrustables. Trevor formed a great fondness for Uncrustables, especially strawberry. He didn't like it when all we had was the grape. He could really put them away. I think Linda thought we were becoming a little juvenile about it, and it grew to be an inside joke between the three of us, Linda and Trevor and I. He and Linda were shopping one day, and he texted me from the grocery store, and he had snuck a box of these into the cart. And he had secretly done that. He was hoping that when they got up there, Linda would actually say, "Okay, we'll get them so you don't have to take them back." And I took to sending him pictures of Uncrustables with different captions to share with Linda, like Breakfast of Champions, Lunch is on me, etc. The latest I found in my messages was just 3 weeks ago. I took a picture of some in Walmart and told him a new order was in and to get there as soon as possible. His response was awesome with 3 exclamation points. And then ... Linda says we're blankety blank idiots. Linda always had some choice words for us and our passions for Uncrustables. So Linda, this one is for you today. Coach Mallory always drove the Suburban, and Trevor always made sure he jumped in the front passenger seat. And by the time they hit the interstate, he was usually sawing logs. But when he was awake, he would tell Coach Mallory stories about former Bronx. He knew them all. One of Trevor's favorites was Jeff Martini, who I see is sitting over there. He would go on and on about Jeff's high school exploits. Now, Jeff was on our staff at the time, and so, man, did we have fun razzing him about the fact that he never missed a tackle, never had been tackled, and had a great career here as a Bronc. Trevor really loved you, Jeff, and he talked about it a lot. The best one, though, was on a trip to Cheyenne. It was several years ago. It was our routine to stop in Glen Rock and do a walkthrough, then make a quick stop at the Chugwater rest area for a break and, of course, an Uncrustable. Trevor was in the Suburban with Coach Mowry, and our female managers and student trainers were on also. We were loading up to head out after the break, and Coach Mowry grabbed me and said, "Don, the Suburban is locked and the keys are in it." I angrily said, "How did that happen?" Now, Trevor was standing there, and he said immediately, "One of those girls must have done it." You can kind of see where this is going, I'm sure. Well, it's not like there's a lot of locksmiths in Chugwater. The closest was in Cheyenne, so it was going to be a while. Now, on game day, I get a little tight, especially if something changes our schedule. So I began to lose my mind. We called the locksmith, had to move all the gear out of the trailer that the Suburban pulls, stacked it all up in the bus. We had it on the kids everywhere. Got everything we could in there and headed out with the team. Jeff and Trevor stayed with the Suburban, and the gear that was still in that rig, which included all our film equipment, our headsets for the sidelines, and most of our tape and medical supplies, to wait for the locksmith. On the rest of the way to Cheyenne, I quizzed the managers and trainers as we rode the bus to see who had locked the doors. All of them swore it wasn't me. Anyway, Jeff and Trevor made it to Cheyenne right before game time. As Jeff came into the locker room, I walked up to him and I said, "It was Trevor, wasn't it?" Yep, you guessed it. Trevor had accidentally locked the doors. Many times after that, I wonder what our post-game interview would have been like if we'd have lost that night. But thank God we won. And, no matter how much we pushed on it for years to come, he never would admit that he was the one that locked the doors. We always loved having Trevor around, and I really think he loved hanging with us. Well, I know he did, with the coaches and players. He wasn't just covering the team. He was one of us, and he was part of our culture, and we considered him one of the team. Those of you who knew Trevor well, which all of you did, you knew he had a very sarcastic wit, surpassed only by Linda's, in my opinion. And at times this would come out in his broadcasts. In my time as AD at SHS, I had more than one phone call from Ron Laird, who was then commissioner of the WHSAA, concerning Trevor. It was usually after a game with one of the Casper schools, or more usually after a trip to Gillette. He would say, "Don, can you please visit with Trevor about something that he had said in the broadcast the night before?" It's usually something about the officials or about the behavior of the opponent players or their fans. It seems there were times the WHSAA office would receive some complaints about something that Trevor had said on the air. I know that that's hard for you to believe. You see, Trevor was a fierce supporter of Sheridan athletes and Sheridan coaches. And you always knew where you stood with him. He didn't mince words. He didn't really care if he offended someone when he was defending the Broncs. I always loved the fact that if someone was going to belittle or attack one of our student athletes or one of our coaches within earshot of Trevor, he was going to go out of his way to defend us and never back down. Trevor was a great advocate for us out in the public. He did have very high expectations for us also. And the better the team was, the more he expected. He didn't have much patience when we were playing at a subpar level. Trevor was very competitive and wasn't scared to let us have it a bit when we weren't playing up to our abilities. I must say, however, that I caught a lot more grief from Linda than Trevor. Linda's favorite moment in high school athletics, in case you don't know, it's known as the running clock. She expected and wanted a running clock in every game possible, and would have some good remarks for me whenever we showed any mercy at all. Here's a few comments from some others. From my daughter Kate. When we lived in Washington, I used to listen to the games and would text Trevor whenever he said something funny or when he got really excited about something. We would banter back and forth. He gave the best bear hugs. From my daughter Emily, when I was young, Trevor would come at the end of practice to interview you. He would come a little early to watch, and he would play catch with me for a bit. He was always warm and welcoming and loving. From Big Shane Parker here. Shane, by the way, went into broadcasting because of Trevor, and who has helped with color on the sportscast since 1992. He shared, Trevor hated delays in games. One time we were doing a girls' basketball game at the Flaming Gorge Classic in Green River, and with 12 seconds left in the first half, one of the girls on the opponent team got hurt, which caused a long delay in the game. Trevor didn't think she was hurt and got very frustrated. Now, Shane said this was off the air, hopefully, but he began to vent. Trevor began to vent, as only Trevor can do. Get up, rub some dirt on it. You're not really hurt. Quit faking it. Let's go, Trevor. Well, they finally got her off the court, finished the game. Well, the next morning, Trevor and Shane are back in the gym, and guess who walked in? The girl, walking on crutches and in a cast. It seems she had broken her leg. Shane said Trevor really felt bad about that one. I got to visit with Bob Grammons Friday. Bob is Trevor's 35-year partner at the radio station and also partner on fishing trips. The first time they went fishing together, Trevor said he would pick up some snacks. Now, Trevor's snacks are very healthy, very nutritional. So anyway, he shows up. He's got two of those great big Oreo packages, 2 of them. Bob says, why'd you buy 2 of those? Trevor's answer, well, I'm not giving you any of mine. So from that day on, there was always 2. You can see Bob for a lot more great fishing stories later on. Bob and Trevor have done a morning show together for decades and have a huge following in the area. A listener once shared with Bob that her granddaughter, who had some special needs, loved to listen to them every morning. Never missed the show. So Bob asked if she wanted to bring her granddaughter to one of the morning shows, which she did. He said Trevor was so good to her, giving her his classic bear hug and spending time with her that morning. The grandmother later shared that the experience was life-changing for her granddaughter. Another listener of the morning show would bring in treats once in a while for Bob and Trevor. She shared that they had been coming into her home every morning for over 30 years. She said she felt like they were sons to her. There's story after story like this of the impact and influence that Trevor was part of at the radio station. As Bob and I were talking, I was thinking about how important a hometown radio station is, especially to those of us in rural Wyoming. I was thinking of my youth growing up on the ranch, and all we had was the local radio station to listen to, a radio station in Kemmer that no longer exists. More and more teams show up in Sheridan without a sports broadcaster of their own. For example, if you live in Casper, you have to rely on Trevor's broadcast when the Casper schools come to town if you're unable to attend the game. It is easy to take for granted how much the impact of Sheridan media has on our community, in our community and county. Generations have watched games through Trevor's eyes. Generations have gotten their local news, sports, and entertainment from Sheridan media. So hats off to Trevor, Bob, Jim, Kim, Ron, all the great folks up on the hill who have come into our homes and cars on a daily basis. The outpouring of love and respect and appreciation that has come to the station since Trevor passed is so impressive and says so much about the following he had and his impact. My son told me that this is an ad lib one here, but my son told me that they opened the show the other day and let people call in, and one of them called in, and I wanted to let you know, Linda. One of them someone called in, so they need to name the press box after Trevor. And so I'll let you and Jeannie work on that afterwards. The Jackson family has had much adversity over the past couple of years with the loss of Trevor's brother and father and Trevor's niece, who is bravely fighting cancer. I believe comfort can come from faith, and it is a family who has strong faith. I was fortunate enough to have had multiple discussions about faith over the years with Trevor, and especially over the past couple of years, I know that Trevor had figured his faith out. He believed in Jesus and the grace needed for salvation, and more was letting go and allowing his faith to work in his life. I think we can all take great comfort in that today. Trevor was working on weak areas in his life, and as I listened to him this fall, I could hear it in his voice. I could hear the love and respect and emotion. During the military and veteran recognition on senior night, my wife and Trevor were texting, "I'm not crying. Are you crying? I'm not crying. You crying?" There was a few tears going on. Trevor shared his heart with us this fall on the air. He loved this team and he loved this season. It was a very special one for him, and you could hear it in his broadcasts. I'm so glad he was able to go out with a victory and another championship as the voice of the Broncs. Former NFL great and high school football coach and a current pastor, Joe Ehrman, says that on our deathbed, we're only concerned about two things. Number one, life is about relationships. It's about the capacity to love and to be loved. What does it mean to be a human? It means being able to look at somebody, look them in their eyes and tell them that you love them and have them tell you they love you back. Number two, what kind of difference did I make in the lives of others, in the lives of my community, my community, and my country? I want to know that I lived for a reason, a cause, and a purpose that was bigger than myself. As I think about Trevor, number one, did he have the capacity to love? Yeah, he said it all the time to people. I love you, and he heard I love you back. Huge capacity to be loved and to give love. Did he make a purpose in the lives of others, his community, and his country? Did he live for a reason, a cause, a purpose that was bigger than himself? Holy cow. Yes, he did. Big time. At the home opener of the 2018 season, we recognized Trevor at halftime. Now, he was so humble, I had to trick him to get him to come down on the track. I told him we were doing a recognition for Scotty, and I wanted him to help me present the recognition. That's how I got him down there. And I looked back in my old files, and I found what I wrote for him that night, and I'd like to share it one more time. Here goes. Bronc fans, tonight we would like to recognize one of our greatest Sheridan High School athletic and activity supporters. There's probably no other person in Sheridan who has watched more Bronc and Lady Bronc games and events since coming to Sheridan in 1988. Through tough seasons and rough losses, as well as the undefeated years and championship victories over winter roads and bus rides from one end of the state to another, he has ferociously cheered on and supported the SHS programs. Don't talk poorly about our student athletes or coaches around him, as he will courageously defend us when the doubters are out in force. He works tirelessly to keep Bronc fans up to date on the radio and online. During his time in Sheridan, he has been named Wyoming Association of Broadcasters Sportscaster of the Year over 10 times. He was also named Sportscaster of the Year in 2014 by the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Associations. He got that award again, by the way, since we did this. He and his wife, Linda, were also very active in their local church. Bronc fans, please join me in recognizing Mr. Trevor Jackson, a true Bronc, who tonight celebrates his 30th home opener as the voice of the Broncs. Thank you, Jax, for your time, effort, and support, and here's to the next 30 years. That was in 2018. You know, we now have lost two great Bronc and Sheridan supporters this fall. Homer Scotty Scott in October, and now Trevor. On September 15th, during the ball game, I texted Trevor to tell him I was listening with Scotty and that he was very moved that Trevor had mentioned him during the game. Trevor responded, "Tell him I love him and everything he's done for me. He's the godfather of Bronc football." The next day, Trevor came to the house and visited with Scotty. They had a great visit together. Trevor was so thankful that he got to see him. He told me later that it reminded him of talking with his dad, and he loved the conversation. Over the past several days, I've been thinking about when I would go up to the press box for the post-game interviews. I would pass Scotty coming down to the field with his headsets on, listening to Trevor. And then I'd go up into the booth, and Gordy was sometimes sitting there behind Trevor, and a couple times I think Trevor's brother was there also. So since last week, I have repeatedly had this picture of a booth in heaven. Gordy and Josh are sitting behind Trevor and Scotty. Trevor's on the play call. Scotty is on color as they call the game, and all the past Broncs are taking on anybody who wants to show up. What a great vision that is. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. May perpetual light shine upon him. May his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed, through your mercy, rest in peace. Thank you.